so, I have so much admiration for everything that all of you volunteers have done during a really difficult time of COVID. You found ways to stay in touch with your schools. Some of you have found very innovative ways to stay in touch with your students. And we are so grateful. At the last Micah meeting, we talked a little bit about the history of Micah, and we won't go into detail on that. But I just wanted to say that the roots are deep with RPS. We have been in RPS schools for 30 years, and equity, we hear a lot about equity these days, right? Equity issues and racial justice was a big part of that. I think a little known fact, in addition to all the wonderful people who helped to found Micah, Ruby Martin was one of the leaders in the task force at St. Paul's Episcopal Church. And she had served as the very first civil rights director under President Johnson. And I think that's a little known fact about Micah that we should all be very proud of. And I think we'll hear more about equity issues today. We're grateful to have Kristen Brown from RPS with us today, who will take us a little deeper. So our lineup for today, I'm excited to hear from an outstanding principal, Rickeita Jones, from Ashley Bland, who is the RPS Teacher of the Year. So we can all learn something. Maybe she'll have some tips for us. And I just want to say that we're making it through. It's not completely over. We're still struggling at times. But I remember when I was teaching in Africa, teaching kindergartners in Africa. I don't know if any of you remember the story going on a bear hunt. It's like a little rhyme story. But there's a part of it that says, can't go over it, can't go under it, can't go around it, gotta go through it. So we have to go through it. But I think in the end, I am confident that we're all going to be stronger from it. And with that, I'd like to introduce Reverend Dr. Alesia Johnson, and I know her so well. Alesia Johnson from Richmond Hill, who will offer greetings and open us in prayer.
Good morning. Good morning. It is a pleasure to be here this morning. It is also a pleasure to have known Micah as I was teaching in the Richmond Public School System. I retired 4 years ago now, and Micah was at Patrick Henry Elementary School when I taught elementary school, and then I taught my last 26 years teaching in the high school, teaching algebra at Thomas Jefferson. And so while we didn't have the privilege of Micah being at TJ, we knew that you were still working with our babies in the elementary school, so thank you for all that you've done to take care of our children. I do bring greetings from Richmond Hill as Co-Pastoral Director, and I'm excited that we get to be a part of this movement in the land. So thank you again for everything that you do. Let us look to the Lord for prayer. Oh, wise and eternal God, our Father, sometimes you're our mother. You're always our friend. God, we thank you for how you've kept us over the last 18, 19, 20 months. But God, you've not just kept us for the last 20 months, you've kept us from birth to this very moment. And so God, we thank you that we know that as we make it through, that we won't do it without you. And so we ask you, God, to allow us to continue the journey with you. We won't move until you move. We won't go until you go. God, we ask that you dispatch angels, that you've given charge over each one one of us, and each one of the children, administrators, staff members, bus drivers, whomever we might come in contact with throughout the Richmond Public School System. God, we ask that you would send angels to watch over the entire system, to watch over these volunteers, that whatever we do would be done unto the glory of your name. We ask that you would continue to protect, to provide, to keep us in your care, God, and we will be mighty careful to give your name the praise, the glory, and the honor, because you alone are worthy. It's in the strong name of Jesus the Christ that we give you thanks. Amen.
Thank you, Lisa. Beautiful. And now we'd like to hear from Ashley Land. Ashley, you come up. Ashley is the RPS Teacher of the Year. And since we're running a little behind, I don't have time to read everyone's bios, but they are printed, and I hope you got them, so please take a moment because all of the people speaking have such impressive credentials. So Ashley, I hope you'll tell us a little bit about yourself as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Smith. And good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so elated to bring you a welcome today. My name is Ashley Bland, and I serve as an instructional technology resource teacher for Richmond Public Schools. And I also have the honor of being the 2021 Richmond Public Schools Teacher of the Year. So, in my opinion, this is the most exciting time of the year, particularly for educators. And I don't have to tell you about the pivotal role you play in our children's lives, particularly with the state of the world today and following a return to school after a fully virtual school year. Richmond Public Schools is made better because of the work you do. The load we lift daily is made lighter because of your commitment. So if you haven't heard it lately, thank you. Thank you for giving your time, your patience, your energy, and love, and pouring it into our students. School extends beyond the walls of the building. Powerful learning experiences are built through community. The powerful proverb, it takes a village to raise a child, well, it takes a village to teach one too. And I'm so encouraged today that you are a part of this village and a part of this community. You may have heard the RPS motto, in fact, it's on the back of my shirt, teach with love, read with love, and serve with love. And it sounds a lot like a motto that you might be familiar with. The Micah motto, seek justice, love kindness, walk humbly. I'm proud to do this work, and it is hard work, alongside such like-minded people. I appreciate all of the love that's been shown today and leading up to today because I know it is that same love that has brought you to this experience and that you will show our students. Thank you to Pam Smith for inviting me to today's event and for your dedication in leading this charge. I would also like to extend thanks to the pastor of this fine establishment, Dr. Ponder, for allowing us the space and opportunity to celebrate the wonderful work that you all have done and continue to do. Happy new school year to all of you, and thank you for amplifying excellence and answering the call to serve. I hope you have an amazing and safe school year, and I hope to run into some of you if you're volunteering at Cary in our hallways. So with that, I will bid you a farewell because I do have to run back to the school building. But I hope to see some of you soon. Thank you so much for having me this morning.
Thank you, Ashley. We're so proud and grateful to have teachers like Ashley. Our next speaker, before I mention her, I just wanted to say that we have represented volunteers from 19 of our elementary schools. the 25 schools here today, and we would have had a few more, but they had conflicts with the date. So we're proud to be in most Richmond Public School elementary schools. Next is Rickeita Jones. There's a second name to it, Rickeita Jones. I wanted to say the whole thing. So Rickeita, we are so happy to have you with us. She is the new principal at Woodville. As we know, Woodville is the first Micah school that was led by Roz. Can you stand, Roz? Taylor, way back when Micah got started. And so Rickeita, please come.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. How are you all this morning? I'm excited. I am Rickeita Jones. I am the very proud principal of Woodville Elementary School, and so I bring you greetings from Richmond Public School. And I asked that my bio not be read because I like to let everybody tell a little bit about myself so that you all know me, and then also to give a background of the in-person learning a principal's perspective. Thank you for the invitation, Dr. Conner. Thank you for the use of your facility. Before I get started, I always like to pay homage to my grandfather, and his name is Gurney Blunt. And in 1963, when we talk about equity, he won a court case against Greyhound and Trailways. He was not, as an African American, allowed to drive his buses. He owned the Franklin bus service out of the state of Virginia. And so he fought in a battle 3 times with Greyhound Trailways. And so the work I do, I make sure that I honor him and I also honor my parents. This is my dad on the horse that's rearing up, and that is my mom. And I thank them for everything. Because of them, I am who I am and I can be here today. And if I ever speak, I will always honor them. So I am a proud graduate of Virginia Union University, where I received my Bachelor of Science in Chemistry. I was a science teacher, and I also received my master's from Virginia State University. I thought I wanted to go into pharmacy school. I did. I always have worked. I've had a very strong work ethic. As a matter of fact, the bus company that you just saw that my grandfather started, my father took over. And as soon as I was old enough, I was there answering phones, secretarial work, and when I could get a break, I was driving the car and learning to drive in a very rural area. And so when I went to school, I was only off 1 semester from the time I started working, and I started working in the pharmacy. I worked at CVS for about 5 years, and I went to pharmacy school. I went to VCU, but I was not fulfilled. I was not feeling my purpose, and I literally cried almost every day I was in pharmacy school. And I knew that I wanted to be a teacher. I was in Future Educators of America in high school. My mom said you taught your dolls and every cousin that would ever come to your house on your chalkboard. And it was just like, this was a job that opened up for me, but it was not fulfilling. I was my first lady of my church back home. She was a kindergarten teacher. I worked with her over the summer. I was an educator at heart. And so I went there for a semester. My father made me pay for it, so he made me finish that semester. But he also gave me permission to follow my dreams. And so at that point, I became a teacher in Richmond Public Schools. This is my very first classroom. It probably looks more elementary, which is why I think I'm an elementary principal now, but this was actually middle school. And I taught middle school 8th grade science at Lucille Brown Middle School. I had that opportunity for the first 5 years. From there, I gained leadership experience. I was taught in an alternative education program at the Fresh Start Center in Southampton County, where we worked with students who had difficulties transitioning, but we also gave them amazing opportunities to help them get transitioned back to the general education setting. Then I just got grown and I wanted to get married. And so I said, well, let me take a step back. So I went back into the classroom so that I got married, and so I had my first child. And so I went back into the classroom at the Rickeita County Public Schools. And I was a physical science teacher and department chair. As you can see, I started my lesson, speed equals distance divided by time. I raced my students. I will never show you the video because I lost pretty badly. But here you can't really tell where I ended the lineup. And so I taught science there, very interactive. And then I had this opportunity. It was so crazy. My principal, I'll go back to him right though. He said, I see leadership in you. It's time for you to be a leader. I said, no, it's not time for me to be a leader. I just had my baby. I'm not ready for that. I'll eventually do it, but not right now. But sometimes, as you all know, God has other plans for you. And so there was an opportunity that came up back home, and I said I was led to do it. I put it in reluctantly, the application.
And this was about October, the school year had already started, and would you know, God said, well, this is where you're actually assigned. And so I left in that school year and started November 1st as a principal of Herbert Elementary School. The thing about this is the gift that Henrico County principal, Mr. Solomon Jefferson, gave me. It's so crazy because it was on my vision board. I had a vision board and it had this exact picture. My name wasn't on it, but it was a desk plaque and it said principal. And at one point I wanted that to be my goal. And he gave me that, and that was like, okay, this is where you're supposed to be. I love that school. I actually cried leaving that school, but I had to move close. I was commuting an hour to work every day, and the crazy part is, right after I got the job, I found out I was expecting baby number 2, so I was commuting an hour back and forth, expecting, plus having a 1-year-old, so it was a busy time. So then last year, I got an opportunity at West Oak Hills Elementary where I served as the assistant principal. And now, this is me. So you may see me professionally dressed, but you also may see me doing a cartwheel at any point in my building. I love to have fun, I love to dance, I love to engage students, and I love to connect with them. And I think my first staff meeting, I did do a cartwheel. Now I am at Woodville Elementary School, and I am so excited to be there. This is the staff. Before the school year started, I said, look, I love to make videos. I make a video at the beginning of every year to set the vision for the year. I believe you have to have a vision if you know to know where you're going. And so my staff, they showed up. I was so excited. You might see Ms. Malloy. She's sitting right there. So thank you, Ms. Malloy. She was there with us. And so this is our theme for the year. Our theme this year is Dream in Color. Because I am a teacher and I love call and response. When you look at this image, can one or two people tell me, what do you think of when you see this image? Do I have any bold volunteers? Dream in Color. What do you see? Anyone? Think of Winnie the Pooh. Think of Winnie the Pooh. Okay.
All kinds of opportunities. Yeah.
All kinds of opportunities. But the opportunities here are starting with what? Reading. Right? Reading. And so that's one of the focuses of Richmond Public Schools too, is exposing our students to books literacy, helping them to be able to read, understand what they're reading, and then also from the reading to be able to dream beyond what they see on a day-to-day basis, to be able to go further than they could ever imagine. It is connected to a song, and you have to kind of get through some of the lyrics of the song, but one of the activities, again, we are at art integration school, so I like to use music in different things. And a part of the lyrics of those songs is, I think we need each other. Empathy, that could be your advantage. Yes, so we need to be empathetic for our students. I don't listen to the public opinion. Their portrayal is just an assumption. So not listen to what the public may say about us or our students or our kids, but what we are able to accomplish. If I shoot my shot, so if I just try, I can be successful. I gave our teachers a book this year, and this little part at the bottom, it says, you can change your life in a snap if you live in atomic time. How? By choosing to transform your one day into today. The first step is creating that reality comes from the courage to move past your fear and go beyond the wall. Give yourself permission to dream. This is a book I gifted to all my teachers. I just started diving into it, but as soon as I saw that, that's exactly what the vision we had. Turning one day into today, turning opportunities for our students and making those a reality. And not only that, but also in our personal lives. So when we talk about dreams, this is our vision for Woodville Elementary School. We will use data to drive our instruction, dreams. Or we will use reading. We will focus on reading and literacy. Engagement, we will engage our students, our parents, and our community. Art integration, which I spoke briefly about. Math and mindfulness, science, and social studies. Here's our vision statement. Woodville Elementary is a truly unique learning experience where teachers, students, parents, and community members, you all, join forces to prepare lifelong learners and productive, responsible citizens. That's our vision. Which is in line with RPS, Dream for RPS. So we are using data to drive instruction. We're already doing that. This is the principal's perspective. We are there. We are meeting every week. My teachers right now are in data meetings discussing our students and how we're going to get them to achieve our goals this year. We gave out 850 books last week to our classrooms for classroom libraries. As you can see, Ms. McCann, she was the teacher fairy, and she went around and delivered 850 books. And of course, we're using EL education and RPS. We have a book vending machine. We already have given out tokens where our students get incentives of books so that they can take those books and also enhance their at-home library. And I believe you may have seen this, RPS is requesting our community's help to continue to help build at-home libraries for our students. For more information, you can reach out to me and I will share the flyer and and information. Engagement. We went out into Creighton Court at the beginning of the school year, and we did a community walk to make sure that our students and our families saw us in their community. We had a playground play date. Okay, I'm a country girl, so I had to bring the farm to Richmond. And so we actually had a petting corn for our students. Thank you to Ms. Malloy and Ms. Levins who helped lead that effort. And we were able to acclimate our kindergarten and first grade students with our school to get our parents and community and our students engaged. Student engagement, we engage our students on a day-to-day basis. Art integration, this is Ms. John, and she was our teacher of the year at Woodville, and what we did was this summer, they created flowers. Those flowers turned into a beautiful mural. And so we were able to do a mural based off of the floral designs that our students did, as well as we had a local artist, Jordan Caston, who was able to create this mural for our students. Math and mindfulness, our students have community circles every morning where they engage with their teacher, they learn our motto, and of course we focus on math with our new curriculum. Science and social studies, we also have a new math curriculum, and we also have purchased hands-on activities for our students. Now back to school. We are back. My teachers asked me, Ms. Jones, can you open the school on Saturdays? Our teachers were there Saturday, so I had to get a Saturday picture to see how we prepared for this school year. Our teachers worked hard to open up their classrooms and prepare. It says, be a real-life superhero and wear your mask. We incorporated this safety thing throughout our building. Even playgrounds, we had to do detailed planning. So no student or no classes combined on the playground. So they have playground zones. You'll see an A, B, C, D where they have to go out and play in certain areas, and it rotates throughout the week. There was a lot of strategic planning to keep our babies safe. We even created videos, bear hug and stretch. We are the Woodville Bears to teach them how to social distance. And I'm not sure if the video will play. There was a video. Is there a video there? It doesn't sound like that. That's okay. And this is just a video just to show our first week of school where we had 3 entrances for our students to come in. We made sure our students had masks. We give them breakfast and we have them spaced out every 2 seats at lunch. We also made sure that they were tagged and they knew the correct transportation to get on. We had our teachers meeting throughout the week to prepare our lessons. And so I will share the video. The video is actually on our social media page. But I just want you to know that we did a lot to prepare for our students to come back. It has been an exciting experience for our students to be there, but it also, in full transparency, it has been somewhat stressful. Trying to keep our students socially distanced, trying to keep our students safe within the building, and trying to make sure that our parents know that we're doing all that we can to keep our students safe. And we do look forward to continued partnership with you all, but you know that there are some limitations with that. And so we are continuing to follow guidelines of RPS to figure out how we can use our volunteers in the upcoming school year or in the current school year. Thank you so much for your time this morning. And I was talking fast because I had a 10-minute time limit and I wanted to make sure that I'm able to get back to my babies at Woodville. I look forward to working with all of you all this year. Thank you.
Linda is with Reveille Church, Reveille. I'm from Chicago, so I'm trying to have all the right pronunciation. And she volunteers at Swansboro. And oh my God, she's another volunteer extraordinary like Hilda with Mount Tabor. And again, it's so grateful to Reverend Ponder and to Cynthia and Hilda and everyone at Mount Tabor who's made this possible. So Linda, Gill, and Micah volunteer.
I was an educator in Micah County Schools for 38 years. So the first day of school was still really special today, and I love our volunteers, and I just know how important they are in every school that we work in. So I'll just tell you a quick little story, and this all started with a pack of extra gum. And it was in the summer of 2020 that, as most people do, we searched and we found an idea online about how we could make these cute little cards and says, thank you for going the extra mile. And we were going to put them in every teacher's mailbox when they came back in September. Well, that didn't happen. But anyway, hold on to that thought. So we had to think about how could we possibly stay, number one, stay in touch with the students that we mentored, or stay in touch with children from the classrooms we worked in. And our CIS coordinator at the time, Ellen Finker, arranged for us to drop little notes, drop them by our house, or little small gifts, and she would deliver them to those students in her caseload, which was great. We felt a connection there. But secondly, we thought, what can we do? We miss our teachers, we miss our students. What can we do? So I saw an article in the paper, and I still view this assistant principal, and you probably saw it too. It was a partnership they had arranged with residents at Cedarville to read. Those residents at Cedarville taped stories. They read stories, taped them, and then the school put them on their internal server, and students had access to that wonderful collection of stories. Well, upon further research and talking with the assistant principal at Fair Oaks Elementary, I learned that that was a huge project because you had to consider all the copyright issues to do such a project. And we just needed to get started now. So I talked to the librarian at Swansboro Elementary, and she arranged for us to virtually read. We had about 10 of our volunteers from Reveille to virtually read during the library time when students came to virtual library. So it was a whole different experience for everyone, because all of you that have worked in elementary schools, reading to students, it was always one of my favorite things to do. So we had to ramp it up a bit, but the children really seemed to just love seeing a different face, and one that they didn't quite know, and find out more about it. So that was a lot of fun. And that, we did that for about 3 months, and then the librarian had some additional responsibilities. So we worked through a 3rd grade teacher, and we brought in some more volunteers, and we probably had 10 by then. And she arranged for us to read during the morning meeting time, just one day a week. I think there was one day that they didn't have a set curriculum. So again, we carried that on, and we went all the way through to the end of school. So then we thought, gosh, we missed the teachers. We just out of touch with the teachers. So we started back in the fall writing, and we had a team of people at Reveille, and we wrote, the faculty and staff, 40 notes each time, and notes of encouragement during different months of the year. And we did that 5 different times to 40 staff and teachers. And they were just so appreciative of receiving something in the mail, especially for them. And during the holidays, we enclosed a small gift card, and they seemed to like that too. So those were some of the ways that we stayed in touch. We are so looking forward to hopefully being able to volunteer back at Swansboro in person at some point this year. We know it may be a while. But we were there on the first day of school with our banners, and Carol Hampton, one of the co-champions at Swansboro with me, had even balls to do the Swansboro Dolphins. So she had a huge dolphin helium balloon, and we were just thrilled to welcome all the boys and girls back to Swansboro that morning. The following week, we delivered 165 Ziploc bags full of school supplies that our congregation had donated. So we feel like that'll be a big help for students. So we try to always be there for Swansboro, but during the school events, to support them in different ways with their fall festival, hopefully. Kimberly's our new CIS coordinator, and I hope that we'll be able to return to some of those events this year. We also provide camperships, 25 camperships for students to attend Westview on the James every year. This year we only were able to have 12 go, but we know that when we return, we'll get back up to 25. And we just always want them to know that we're there for them to help in any way. But it's a rewarding experience for us, as I know it is for all of you. So thank you.
Thank you. Great job. Those notes of appreciation go a long way. Okay, we're going to do something, Richard. We're going to take just like 3 minutes. But I'd like you to meet someone that you don't know here today. And so if that's someone next to you, if not, if you need to get up and meet someone, but they're not from your organization, you have no knowledge of them, and you can ask them how they fared during COVID. You can ask them to tell you something about their favorite childhood teacher, or their favorite childhood book, or something about their family. So we're going to take 3 minutes and make sure you have time to interview each other, go back and forth. Okay, you may begin.
And I hope we find ways to stay connected. You know, feel free after, during the break, to exchange numbers and emails. I'd like to introduce Reverend Herbert L. who has graciously allowed us to use this lovely church today. Dr. Conder's primary concern has been preaching and teaching the gospel so that all persons can experience the transformation that comes from a relationship with Jesus Christ. Dr. Conder holds degrees from the University of Pittsburgh, a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration and Accounting, and the Samuel DeWitt Proctor School of Theology, where he earned both his Master's in Divinity and his Doctorate of Ministry degree. He is involved in numerous community and denominational activities, and I have to just mention that coming here from another state, when I was planning other events and asking, you know, what ministers are really involved in the community, I remember somebody saying to me, be sure you reach out to Reverend Conder, because he's very interested and does a lot of hard work in the community. So with that, we welcome you.
Good morning to everyone. Glad to be in the number for the opportunity to come and to share and see some folks in person in the building. As many churches have been closed down, we are still operating virtually, and so it's good to have you here and we welcome you. There's a Christmas song that begins, "This is the most wonderful time of the year." And I often think of that from a Christmas perspective, but also from the school perspective. I remember as our children were growing, I was always excited to go to the store and get all the school supplies, because I looked at school and education as an opportunity to kind of lay the path for your future. And so this is the most wonderful time of the year when we can look around the sanctuary and see the volunteers and persons who will be working with our students and making a difference in their lives. Again, we're grateful for this opportunity. Thank you again for staying. What does God require of us? That's the topic I've been assigned to speak to today. And that pushes me to Micah chapter 6, verse 8, which you may know a little bit about. And it reads from the New Revised Standard Version of the Bible. He has told you, O Lord, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you, but to do justice and to love kindness and to walk humbly with your God. From the Message, it reads a little different. But he's already made it plain how to live, what to do, what God is looking for in men and women. It's quite simple. Do what is fair and just to your neighbor. Be compassionate and loyal in your love, and don't take yourself too seriously. Take God seriously. So what does God require of us? Well, what God requires, again, I was thinking about the Whitcomb Elementary School, which is a school I spent a lot of time in, the Walk the Wind program. And I had a conversation with a student one time, and I said, what do you want to be? What do you want to do when you grow up? And his response back to me, well, I don't really expect to grow up. And then I heard what he said, and that has weighed on me these years. Because we often say the children are our future, and we found out this past year that they're not only our future, but they're our right now, because they're the only ones who know how to operate the technology. But that young man had no plans for tomorrow, no expectations for tomorrow, because he did not plan to be present for his tomorrows. And I saw that as a challenge and an opportunity for us to engage and to be present in the lives of our children, to help them. As former principal at Armstrong High School said, April Hopkins, we've got to dream for them until they can dream for themselves. So what does God require of us? What a wonderful question, because even in the question it implies that God has some requirements. some expectations. And as I think about that, expectations are a part of life. We have expectations when we go to work that we show up on time, do what we're being paid to do, and complete our assignments. We have expectations in our homes that are the spouses or the children or the parents that God has called us to be. And even in our neighborhoods, that we would live as good neighbors. We have expectations even as students in school to learn and to get the grades that will help us to advance and to build our resumes and our careers. We have expectations all around us as citizens. Today is the first day to go vote. That's part of being a citizen in the community. There are expectations that we would live in such a way to impact others. Well, what does that mean for us today? It challenges us to recognize that there are some problems that have been present, that have been recurring, that we might even suggest are systemic, that are holding certain students back and keeping them from not only achieving, but keeping them from dreaming. What a messed up life it must be to not be able to dream about a better tomorrow, or even good today. What challenges might be inherent simply in trying to deal with the challenges we face? Not on a yearly basis, but a daily basis. And so, as we look at this text challenges us because God's people have not always done what God has wanted them to do. That's surprising because we would make the assumption that God's people always do what God wants them to do. But we know better because we have our free will and we just want to do our own thing at times. And sometimes we are more interested in our comfort zones than we are in God's assignment for us. This text challenges us because if you look back at the whole chapter, they had done some things. They had exploited those that were vulnerable, taken advantage of them. Even there were systems in place that kept those who were vulnerable in their place. Being aware of their shortcomings, their sins, they want to know, what can we do? How can we make it better? And isn't it interesting how when we recognize we've messed up, we want to kind of fix it on our own schedule with our own remedies. And when we look at Micah 6 verses 6 and 7, we see that they come up with a variety of things that will kind of soothe and appease God so that God should be happy that if we make this sacrifice, if we do this, if we do that, they came up with all kinds of things that they assumed would please God. Which leads us to our text in verse 8. In so many words, I hear God say, it doesn't take all that. We kind of create elaborate responses, and God is simply saying, it doesn't take all that. Well, what does it take? What does God require of us? It is simple. Do what's right. Do what's right. Do unto others as you would have them do to you. Do what's right, meaning that when you see something that is wrong, make it right. I know I'm simplifying and summarizing, but I think I only had 30 to 45 minutes to talk. Do what is right means that we recognize that there are some challenges, there are some problems, and that when we insert ourselves, we can be the solution. We can be the ones that bring hope, and we can be the ones that provide the opportunity to dream again. And it's almost like though there are expectations that God has of us, we don't have to look at it as a taxing obligation. Sometimes when we do things that we don't really want to do, we say, I gotta go to work, and I gotta do this, and I gotta do that. Well, can I suggest that we change our language and say we get to work with students. We get to be present in the lives of those who are forming the next generation. We get to be a part of those who will dream dreams. We get to serve and to show up in lives so that we can help them to see their potential. Well, that sounds exciting to me because it doesn't sound like something that we are burdened with doing. It sounds like we are privileged to simply participate. I'm grateful that you are here. But I want to encourage you that as we begin this school year, do the right thing. Recognize the privilege that we each have to show up in the same way God has shown up for us. See, if this was a sanctuary full of Mount Tabor members, there'd be some folks talking back to me right now. Because we would have some recognition that God has shown up for us. That God has blessed us, that God has made a way, that God has opened doors, that God has made opportunities available to us that others try to keep from us. Can I ask you just to look back in your history, in your life, in your journey, and acknowledge and recognize the times that God showed up for you? It could have been like that Sunday school teacher I had that just made sure I got my assignments done. It could have been like that deacon in my church that he didn't always have to say much, but he just kind of looked at me a certain way when I was there. See, that helped me to recognize that there were people in my life that were concerned and invested in me. Or even my high school homeroom teacher that told me, you need to go down to junior achievement. I didn't know what junior achievement was, but because he said so, I went, and that opened up some possibilities. Or like that English teacher I had that made me read books that I did not want to read and caused me to develop a love for reading. Do what's right. Recognize how God has shown up for us. It's simple. You don't have to kind of concoct all types of solutions. For again, the text says he's already made it plain on what to do. God is looking for men and women. It's quite simple. Do what is fair and just to your neighbor. Be compassionate and loyal in your love. Don't take yourself too seriously. As Principal Jones said, she likes to do cartwheels. I had not thought about doing that. I probably hurt myself. But sometimes we have to be vulnerable enough so that we can speak to those that we seek to serve. God bless you as you start this new year. May God keep you, that you might help some to dream until they can dream for themselves.
He's got the whole world
a real fast bathroom break for about 5 minutes, maybe 10. We have a lot to get in today, so if you can come back as quickly as we can, and we'll all be in here again, and the next group will break out. Okay, so 5-7 minutes and back here. Thank you.
Terrible.
Okay. Well, I'm glad we're back all together again. So now we get to hear for all the updates and information that we've been looking for from Charlotte Allen at CIS, and also with her today is Kristen Brown from RPS. So I wanted to just say a little bit about Kristen. I think her presentation is first. So Dr. Kristen Moore Brown has over a decade of experience in educational equity, serving Black and brown students. She served as a DC public schools teacher for 6 years, teaching world history, and after leaving the classroom, Kristen worked for the Department of Education during the Obama administration. And she served as a district leadership fellow in the office of the Deputy Mayor of Education, where she worked on truancy policies in DC schools. And now she's with RPS, and I'm sure she'll tell you more about herself. And Charlotte's career began as a project manager at Circuit City's corporate headquarters, and she later began volunteering with her church through Micah at Oak Grove. She was then hired by CIS as a site coordinator at Westover Hills, and she stayed in that role for 9.5 years and has been director of volunteer community engagement for CIS for the past 3 years. We all know Charlotte well, and we're delighted to meet you, Kristen. So I'll turn it over to the two of you. Thank you.
Well, hello, welcome. It's so great to see everyone in person, face to face, after all this time that we've been apart. I'm always so uplifted when I come to the kickoff meetings every September, so this is just a treat for me to be here. I did want to mention, as you all know, we had very few opportunities to volunteer in the schools last year because of COVID and in virtual learning. So we are very, very hopeful that we will be welcoming volunteers into the schools this year. And I say hopeful because unfortunately the situation is still fluid. There is, it could change at any point, but you all are valued assets for the schools, and so we are all going to probably just have to adjust as we go week to week moving forward. But I did want to mention that this year, in probably more than ever, Richmond Public Schools Department of Community Engagement and Communities in Schools have worked together and worked really hard to engage volunteers for the upcoming school year, as well as to to make your volunteer experience as streamlined as possible. And in doing that, we have decided to go ahead and do a joint volunteer orientation. So we are going to be adding in a piece on Richmond's history and how it affected and still affects public schools in the area. So we have Dr. Kristen Brown with us today, and she's going to bring that piece of it, and then I will come back up here and talk a little bit more about logistics and next steps. So what I do want to do, first of all, before I introduce her, is I'm going to have a sign-in sheet passed around, and it's the same sign-in sheet you had when you walked in. If you would just check your name off that you're here, that will give me a good indication of the attendance for today. So thank you so much, and let's welcome Dr. Kristen Brown. Start us off.
Thank you so much, Charlotte. I'm so happy to be here. As Pam was saying, I really worked in DC Public Schools. I have been in Richmond Public Schools since 2019. I think my work anniversary is actually my 2-year work anniversary is next month. I lead the mentorship work and equity work within Richmond Public Schools. We're really excited to be back virtually and in person this school year and to relaunch our mentorship strategy. We'll get a little more about the reading literacy initiative and reading buddies and what that kind of looks like this school year as well. So just an overview of what I'll be discussing today. It includes just a quick overview of my presentation, which is RVA high-level history of inequities that existed throughout histories and the importance of mentorship and literacy in Richmond Public Schools today. So this is just a quick overview level. Hopefully I won't be too long for you today. So I know this is not like the environment to necessarily have the icebreaker that I wanted, because we're like so spread out with social distancing, but I just want to invite you to reflect on these questions as we eventually become in the schools working with our RPS students. How do I see myself versus how do others perceive me? This is just a couple of icebreaker questions that I ask in the trainings that I do so that we can reflect on how we prepare with working with students. These questions are important to unpack how we see ourselves versus how we see others as we work and advocate for our RPS students. Understanding the layers of our identities help us empathize and work better with others. So as you reflect on these questions as well, think about how do we see our RPS students and how can we affirm their identities when building relationships with them. So just a little bit of history, like I said before, and I'm sure many of you kind of like know this, but a lot of the RVA history does impact the inequities that exist in our school system today. So Richmond was made the capital of the Confederacy in 1861 when Virginia decided to secede from the Union to fight in the Civil War. Given the entrenched racism against systematic abuse of African American people since the Civil War, Richmond grew as a severely racially segregated city. So that also contributes to the inequities today that exist in our education system. After the end of Reconstruction in 1877, Jim Crow laws were enforced in the southern states, leading to almost an entire century of targeted discrimination against African American people until the 1950s. Though slavery ended in 1865, racism remains pervasive in the United States. And one way that occurred was through redlining, which we're mostly familiar with, which prohibited Black residents from purchasing property by systemically denying bank loans, and also the highway system, which drove holes through African American communities across the country. During this era, Black people were devoid of economic opportunities, which led to a negative cycle of poverty and inability to rise in the social ladder. Moreover, the segregation of schools resulted in Black schools not receiving funding compared to their white peer counterparts. Naturally, after years of suppressing opportunities to live, work, study, so Black people had this situation and had artificially created a where Black people were susceptible to poverty and crime. But the city of Richmond as a model, it becomes apparent that centuries of systematically discriminating against an entire race of people has created a cycle of negative consequences. One of the most significant events that disrupted the progression of upwardly mobile Black community in Richmond was the disruption caused by the construction of the interstate highway system, which led to a deeper visual investigation of the Jackson Ward community in Richmond. This neighborhood, known at one point as Harlem South, was the center of African American culture in the region. The community was literally split in half by the construction of the Richmond-Petersburg Turnpike I-95 in the 1950s. A block-wide swath was cut into the cityscape, leaving scars of destruction that still remained unhealed. Hundreds of historic homes and neighborhood structures were cleared for the sake of American burgeoning car culture. This is a large contributing factor to the racial wealth gap, leaving Blacks unable to build up their generational wealth in the city. As we know, when cities and parts of cities are decimated, then public schools are those areas and neighborhoods that are left under-resourced for decades. Even though Richmond has recently gotten rid of certain oppressive symbols like the statues of Confederate generals and Monument Avenue, the statues were very symbolic of Confederate mindsets and the levels of oppression people feel on a regular day-to-day basis. The removal of the statues is just one small step in having these honest conversations about history and race that demonstrates the importance of challenging narratives that fail to recognize the underlying issues of race in America. As a school district, we are committed to anti-racist mindsets and practices, disrupting systematic racism and providing equitable opportunities for all students. We are moving towards a more forward-thinking way to approach serving all students. This is supposed to be a video, but it's going to play this. Yeah, it's not going to play, but it pretty much describes the history of the education inequities starting even before Brown supported education in 1955, which led to the integration of schools, and how, of course, schools in certain parts of cities were left under-resourced as a result of white flight. But this kind of just also describes like just another barrier to dismantling racism is the inequity in how we fund our school system, which is done primarily through local taxes. As a result, lower income families and students typically have lower quality schools, and the African American community is typically lower income than the white community. So this video gave a short history of that, contributing factors of the opportunity gap between Black students and other students of color, as well as their white peers. And when we think about this, we think about the importance of mentorship for our students and the resources, and mentorship being a resource for these students that live in these inequities within our schools. So RPS, like I said, is a district that prides itself in our journey towards equity and anti-racism. In the strategic plan, Dream for RPS, we address that our goal is to decrease the gaps in proficiency and advance rates by race, economic status, ELL status, and IEP status. Education equity is achieved when we eliminate the predictability of student outcomes based on race, zip code, gender, ability, socioeconomic status, or languages spoken at home. The definition is informed by student-centered outcome. Most importantly, the definition of equity is measurable and one that we can monitor our progress towards achieving. So the goal is equity. Within that goal is diversity, inclusion, culturally responsive teaching, and anti-racism. And all that works its way into mentorship. So why do we need a mentoring program in the RPS, and what makes a good mentor? Relationships between mentor and mentee encourage empowerment, confidence, self-advocacy, with the ultimate goal of providing Black and brown students equitable opportunities. So what makes a good mentor? Let's think about that for a second. Some of those qualities include empowering students to reach and fulfill their full potential, consistently showing up to support student growth, actively listening to students' needs, giving space to learn from students, finding new and unique ways to connect with students. And why do you think we need mentoring? Because a lot of students do struggle academically and socially. This includes behaviors, includes attendance, this includes grades as well, so academics. Also, a lot of our students come from a single parent home, and it's important that that role model is still there, even outside of their parental and guardian guidance. There's still one or more adults and mentors in their life to guide them on their journey in academia. Also, some students have been identified to have leadership potential and have an interest in social change as well. So also mentors could encourage them and help mold students' minds, expose them to different experiences that push their potential and their leadership skills as well. So some support strategies for mentorship. It's important to keep in mind that being a mentor in RPS to RPS students is being one of their advocates. We should allow our students to be vulnerable and share our life experiences, listen to their experiences, affirm their identities, and highlight their strengths to encourage their self-confidence. This year we're focusing, we have different strands of mentoring, where we have the one-on-one relationship building, but we also have a strand of literacy mentoring this school year, where this year every elementary school will be partnering with faith-based organizations, businesses, and individuals in the Richmond community who will be providing reading buddies for students. Research states that a reading mentorship, students' reading level gains when mentored 3 to 4 times a week. When an adult reads aloud to a child, both parties have a joyful, rewarding experience that instills love of reading, improves literacy skills, and enhances the child's self-confidence. Now I think I will hand it over to Evelyn's video. I don't think there's anything. No, just her.
Did I hear you say 3 or 4 times a week?
That's what research says. That's not, I didn't necessarily say that that's what's going to happen this year. This research said that gains can be made with students if they're read to every 3 or 4 times a week. I also think that includes when they're read to at home as well as when they're reading mentorship. That doesn't seem like it. Yeah, I think she reported it online. Okay. So her research. Thank you so much, and feel free to reach out to me if you all have any questions.
Thank you.
Okay, so I just wanted to speak a little bit about what you can expect. Many of you are seasoned volunteers and have been in the schools and know what to expect, but I just want to make sure we go over this. And there are some new things happening in the schools in regards to COVID and vaccinations and all that type of thing. So I do want to, however, start, just in case there's anybody in this room that doesn't know about CIS and why you are interacting with us instead of directly with Richmond Public Schools for volunteering. And that's basically because Richmond Public Schools and CIS have partnered in the Richmond area. CIS is a national organization, and its focus is dropout prevention. So that aligns really well with, in all levels, trying to identify students who are either in the process of dropping out of school at the high school level or the middle and elementary school level. It's about identifying students who are having some type of challenge that may then eventually lead to that. So that is what CIS's purpose is, and that, like I said, really aligns with what Richmond Public Schools and Rickeita County Schools is doing. We are, I'll go ahead and talk a little bit about our mission statement. To surround students with a community of support, empowering them to stay in school and achieve in life. And that directly supports the mission statements of the area school districts, whose focus is on preparing students to become successful, contributing members of society through innovative and compassionate learning communities. CIS this year is in K through 12 grades, in 36 Richmond City schools and in 4 Reveille County schools. And CIS is based on its 5 basics, which is 5 principles that we believe every student is entitled to. And if every student does receive these 5 basics, then they are much more able to, or much more likely to be successful. Those are a one-on-one relationship with a caring adult, a safe place to learn and grow, a healthy start, a healthy future, and a marketable skills to use upon graduation, and the chance to give back to peers and community. So you can see, you guys are number one, one-on-one relationship with a caring adult. Volunteers are such a huge resource for Richmond Public Schools, and as CIS coordinators in all of our schools, our folks are coordinating and facilitating programming and resources for schools, and volunteers fall right within that. So that is why CIS is so heavily involved in volunteering in Richmond Public Schools. Sure, that's okay. So this is our model. It's a graphic to kind of give you a little bit easier understanding of how we all work together. But as you can see, the student is in the center, and then we have the school system on the left-hand side, and all the things that they should be concerned about, and we want them to have the time to think about and focus on. Rigorous teaching and learning, skills and supportive staff, safe and loving school culture, deep partnerships with families and communities, and modern systems and infrastructures. And then over there on the other side, where CIS's logo is, these are some of the areas that we are trying to support students in, and that's basic needs, small groups, if they need anything from grief counseling to anger management help, behavioral modifications or interventions, life and coping skills, and supportive guidance, so just encouraging and being another person in the building that cares about them, and then college and career prep. So as you can see, there's a lot on the plates of everyone who's involved with students in the area, and so we can't do it ourselves. We need the volunteers and partners to be our feet on the ground in the schools, working day to day, helping us to move students toward their goals. So thank you so much for being those folks for us. And I just wanted to mention really briefly that if you were ever volunteering and you needed to have someone to talk to about your volunteer experience, you do have folks you can go to. The first person, if you're in a school that has communities in schools, you would go to your site coordinator, which hopefully you all know or will soon know who your person is. We do have a website if you're curious that has all of our pictures of our site coordinators and what schools they go to, so if you're curious, you can definitely check that out. You can also come to me, CIS Volunteer Management Department, and those are emails that I use, and I'd be happy to help with any sort of challenge or problem you might have. And then obviously you can go to Richmond Public Schools Office of Engagement, and there are Grady Hart and Kristen Brown's email addresses there. So many of these have already been touched on, but I just wanted to make sure that we hit on just a few. Best practices for volunteering, especially in the schools this year. Expect the unexpected. So we're trying to do a really nice job planning your volunteer experience, getting the time straight, getting the place straight, getting everything straight for you to volunteer. And then at the last minute, there could be a fire drill, or there could be an assembly called, or there can be something that's beyond our control that we might not necessarily know about. And so expect the unexpected is something that you can pretty much expect, right? There's going to be something is going to happen within one of your volunteer times probably this year. So if you could just have some flexibility, some grace, some understanding that these things do happen, and as much as we try for you all to have a wonderful volunteer experience, every now and then stuff happens. So that's the biggest one I can share with you. Being non-judgmental when you come to the schools, I think that's pretty obvious. I'll speak to that in a minute. Reliable and consistent. Students, especially if you're paired with one or several students, they're going to be looking for you to come week after week after week. And we don't want to disappoint them. But however, we know that folks get sick, you guys go on vacation, there are trips, there are things that happen, and that's totally fine. We just want to make sure that if that is the case, that you communicate that with someone, especially your student if they're old enough. or CIS coordinator or teacher or whomever you're working with, because they'd be the ones that then can help remind the student that you're not going to be here this week, but you'll be back the following week. Listen attentively. I think Kristen mentioned that as well. It's a great way to build relationships with kids, and some of the students that we work with especially don't always have an adult that really wants to sit down and hear what they have to say. And so I think that's really important to build self-esteem for students, is to let them talk about the things they want to talk about. And I think sometimes as adults we want to rush in and share all our wealth of knowledge and all our life experiences, and although that is great and there's definitely a place for that, just make sure you to remember to listen to your students and care about the things that they care about. And don't be afraid to set clear expectations. If the student is doing something that you don't like or saying something that you don't like, it's totally fine for you to say, you know, I enjoy my time with you. However, I'm not comfortable when you say this or when you do this. And as long as you set out that clear expectation, I think you'll be surprised at how well they'll follow in and listen to what it is that you are asking of them. Also, it's okay to set clear expectations with folks in the schools, like teachers and such. When I was a site coordinator, I used to, I had several volunteers who would say to me, oh, the teacher asked me if I would just stand in the classroom while she went to the bathroom. And you don't want to do that. That's not your job. You don't want to take on that type of responsibility. And I don't think that that kind of thing happens often, so I don't want you to be alarmed about that, but just, it's okay to say, you know what, I don't feel comfortable with that. Let me go to the office and find somebody for you that can do that for you. So clear expectations are really important, and don't be afraid of that when you're in the schools. And then obviously be yourself and have fun. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Also keep in mind that many of the students will have some non-academic challenges that you may not be aware of. Obviously, if there is something going on with the student and you're paired with them that you need to know, you will know. They will tell you that, but they may not tell you other things, right? So there might be things happening in their home life or in some area of their life that you may never know about, but just know that they were intentionally placed with a volunteer for a reason. And so I just think that's really important to kind of keep in the back of your head as you're working with students. Also, you know, just to remember that everyone comes from a different background, lifestyle, has different life experiences, and we just want to remember to embrace those differences, to create an understanding and acceptance, because just because it's different doesn't mean it's wrong, it just means it's different. It's also the case with generational differences. All of us are going to be older than the students we work with, so we have different generational experiences than they have, and that does not mean that there's a wrong, it just means it's different. So I had this reminder for me when I have two grown daughters, and one of my younger daughters, when she was in her early 20s, came to me and said, Mom, I need to mail this letter. And I said, okay, great. She's like, I don't know how to get stamps. I said, what do you mean you don't know how to get stamps? She's like, I don't know where they come from. And I was like, how is this possible? But then it's really, you know, it's just so typical that her generation doesn't use the mail, doesn't write, doesn't use stamps, and you know, why would she necessarily know how to get stamps? Of course, my generation, that's all we did was write letters and, you know, back and forth. So it doesn't mean that her experience is any right or wrong, and mine is not right or wrong, it's just a different experience. So keep that kind of thing in mind when you're working with kids. So I'm just going to really fly through this. We're going to be there as role models and not parental figures. So morality and discipline are really not your lane. I mean, that's something that as a role model you want to be encouraging, you want to build their strengths, you want to build their skills, help them and model things for them, but you know, that's really not your area, is discipline and morality. Positive change is not always visible. You work with a student for a while and sometimes volunteers say, you know what, we just don't ever see any change. But that doesn't mean there's not a change, because there almost always is a change if you're working with a student. Maybe that student's grades haven't changed much, but maybe their study skills have gotten better. Or maybe they haven't been in trouble as much. So there's always a positive influence there somewhere. You just have to make sure that you look for it, and it's not always visible. So if you ever are concerned about that, you know, talk to somebody, either their teacher or the site coordinator at the school, school because they will have more in-depth knowledge of the student and what it is that they are doing. We're not there to save or rescue them. We just want to, again, encourage them, build them up, help teach them the skills that they need in order to take care of themselves and to be the best that they can be, right? Know that bonds may not be always immediate, sometimes because of personalities. Students and volunteers don't always hit it off immediately, and that's okay. I would suggest just to be patient and give it time, but if there's ever a situation where it's just not working out, then it's obvious. You are absolutely encouraged to go talk to the site coordinator or the teacher or whoever your contact person is so that you can get that resolved. The student's time is very valuable as well as yours. You're taking out of your day to come visit them, but they may also be sacrificing time with their friends, let's say at lunch, or they may be sacrificing time where they were supposed to be in a resource class or recess, something like that. So just keep that in mind that with all of the difficulties in scheduling, sometimes they may be giving up something to be with you. So keep that in mind. And also dress appropriately. I think that's pretty obvious. We just wouldn't want to wear anything to the schools that the students can't wear or that would go against, being a role model for them. Just a few things about boundaries. No money or gifts without prior approval. No money. I mean, that's just a really bad practice because once you start giving them money, even if it's just $1 to get something at lunch, pretty soon they're going to be asking you every single time they see you. They may even tell their friends that you give them money, and then it just changes your relationship with them. So I suggest just don't do money at all. Gifts, sometimes folks want to give something for birthdays and that type of thing. We would suggest maybe either if you can do something for the whole class, great. If that's not possible, then give them something educational, a book, a really cool pencil, something that they can use in their educational pursuits. That always is a good plan for making them feel special. Also, keep it confidential. We want to make sure that you're not giving your phone number or taking their phone number, communicating that way, taking photos of them and having them on your phone and or on the internet, social media. That's just a really bad practice, right? It's a liability for you all, for us, for everyone, and it's just really not a good idea. So we want to keep everything that we hear about our students confidentially. We want to keep it in confidence. We want to make sure that we're protecting them and their privacy as best we can. And then plan for all of the activities to be in school and or after school. The only exception to that is Brothers United and Empower Her, which are the mentoring programs from the Richmond Public Schools. They, I believe, do some outside activities. They go ahead and do some weekend things, I believe, but for the most part, we're not going to be doing any weekend or nighttime volunteering. If that's something you're interested in, we would suggest Big Brothers, Big Sisters, sorry. So reporting is something that we sometimes hear questions about. You all are considered a responsible adult, so you may hear or see something that a child says that is really brings up a red flag for you. It could be neglect or abuse of the child. And your only responsibility in that case would be then just to report back to someone. And everyone in the school, including the site coordinators, are what's called mandated reporters. So we would be the ones who would be determining whether there was a further investigation needed or a CPS needed to be called or any of those things. That's not your role. All you have to do is just communicate it, right? And so just know that you do not have to be concerned about taking the next steps with that, as long as you've told someone in the school. So let's talk about this. This is what to expect the day of. You have to bring your government issued photo ID. It will be run through their Raptor database. So basically they scan your ID the very first time you go in, and then after that you should be in their database, and you can go in to a computer that's in the front of the school and sign in and sign out that way. I believe Raptor this year will be asking you questions, COVID-related questions. How do you feel today? Have you been around someone who's been ill? That type of thing for you to answer, and I think that's new for this year. Also know that the doors of the schools will be locked. That's just for security purposes. You'll have to ring the bell to get in. And in many cases, there are metal detectors in some of the schools, but usually those are the older schools that have middle and high. But just know that that's possible. Masks have to be worn at all times in the buildings. So pretty much just realize that you're not going to take your mask off until you leave the building. And that's the case for all students, staff, everyone that works there. When you are there, I would make sure I ask about parking, make sure you're parking in the right spot, where the bathrooms are, the adult bathrooms in particular. I would also ask about school safety protocols, just in case you don't want to be caught with the student outside a classroom and then have the fire alarm go off and you don't know where to go and you don't know where their safe spot is for the class. And so anyway, just make sure you ask about that so that it doesn't catch you off guard. It's probably won't happen, but they do, especially in the beginning of the school year, they do lots and lots of those drills. So that's pretty much it. I wanted to speak a little bit more about the next steps. So what we are doing this year is CIS has gotten itself a volunteer management database, which I don't know how you all feel about that, but I'm very excited. That helps us to manage folks. You'll be able to go in and sign up for volunteer opportunities at your school. You'll be able to log in your hours. You'll be able to track hours if that's something you want to know about. That's something that we like to know about as well. We're going to be sharing our information with Richmond Public Schools as well so that they can also know the volunteers that are in their buildings. So it's going to be a really great added benefit for us. Unfortunately, there's a little bit of, we have to get there first. So what I can suggest is that you all be on the lookout because we will be sending, based on the list that I have today, I will be sending you an email that has a link in it for you to fill out a profile, and that's basically just an account with this database that's called Volunteer Hub. And once you fill out your information, then that triggers me to send you the background check and or send you a renewal background check, which is basically the same thing, because the background checks have to be done every 2 years. And since no one really volunteered last year, most people's background checks are up for renewal. Or if they're not up for renewal right now, they'll be up for renewal within the next month or two. So we want to go ahead and get all that done. But again, if you go ahead and fill out your profile from the email I send you, then it will trigger the background check. And that is, again, another email that comes from Sterling Volunteers, and you can click on it and fill it all out online. The background checks are $24.80, and you can pay by card, credit, or debit online. We do have paper copies if you would prefer to do it that way. If you want to do a paper copy, that's totally fine. I just need a check for $24.80. We don't really have cash and change and all that. So, but if you would like to do it that way, you just need to let me know, and I'll make sure I can send that to you by email. So once the background checks are done, and honestly they take 3 to 5 days usually. Once they're done, then I will again trigger your site coordinator to contact you and let them know that you're ready to go. So that's going to be our process. Depending on, you should start seeing emails from me Monday, Tuesday, and then once that's all done, we can get everything wrapped up within a week or so and be ready to go. We just want to make sure that we are cognizant of the fact that principals are still figuring things out, and volunteering is really probably not going to be happening until at least, anywhere between the 1st of October to the 15th of October, depending on each individual school and how prepared they are and ready to accept volunteers. So your site coordinators right now are working very diligently with principals, finding out what exactly it is that they want you all to do and how they want you to do it. And once they have that information, then obviously they'll be meeting with you all and contacting you and working out your individual schedules and get that all straight. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else I need to mention. Do you, can I open it for questions? Okay. So you think of questions? Yes. Go
Yes. This is CIS in-school volunteers.
Yes.
But now we're gonna have extended day.
Right,
And some of us have worked in this extended day in the past,
right,
which has been run by Parks and Recs,
yes.
which has a different background check, plus the TV shot requirement.
Oh,
So are you guys working with this?
I tell you what, that's a really good point. So, what I can do is make sure that there should only be one background check.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that makes perfect sense. So, what we can do, let me think. The problem is, I am not able to go into your background check and give it to anybody because it's not my information, right? And so that falls on you. But there shouldn't be any reason why, whichever background check you do first, that you can't share. You know, now when I say share, I mean you're going to need to get a copy of it, and you're going to need to actually physically give it to us. And I know that's tricky. What I can do though is I will check on that. And do you know anything about it? I'm sorry. Right.
You can't just get a definitive answer.
Yeah. Right. I mean, there shouldn't be, like I said, I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure what their requirements are. Let me check. And you said that's Parks and Rec.
And Parks and Recs and Deirdre Davis has been our contact for after and before school the past couple of years. And then, but I will say the volunteer manual online was produced in 2016.
Oh, it's going to take it.
Well, how long ago?
About 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you go into you do your profile.
Okay, now I was talking about Parks and Recs.
Oh, theirs. Oh, I'm sorry.
There. So again, that does say TV shot, and there are volunteers that can pay for that too.
Oh, I have no idea about the shot. Okay. I'm not sure there's anything I can do about the shot, but I don't see any reason why we wouldn't be able to share the background check. So I will definitely work on that.
I will contact Parks and Rec too and
Would
check
you-
into the shot.
Because I think there's some,
Yes.
Yeah, there's definitely
It's a good point.
It's a very good point. And that leads us to, like, if you have a background check from another organization and it's been done in the last 2 years and it's a 50-state check, we would definitely take that. You don't have to do it again. I would just need to have a copy. So, whether it's an email copy or a fax copy or a mailed copy or whatever, that would be fine. Just need to have that on file somewhere. So, okay, go ahead.
I don't know if this makes sense to mention it now, and I guess Pam, you are coordinating with Parks and Recs and you're communicating with them because, this year Parks and Recs is only in certain schools. So I don't know if, depending on what school you were at before, it might change the dynamics of how you're connected.
Okay.
And then because our school times have changed, the start and end time, that might impact us as well in terms of you guys involved in. So I think that would be good to make sure you get information on it and pass that out.
Okay, great. Thank
Yeah,
you.
perfect.
So I'm in school, I'm at John B. Cary, and we don't have a CIS at John B. Cary, so I just wondered, we don't know what to do.
I tell you what, I would suggest that you contact the folks at Richmond Public Schools in the office engagement. So Kristen, who is here, is over mentorship, but she has colleagues in that group that do volunteering for Richmond. Obviously, it's not as on the scale that we do it, but they still do handle some of that, so they obviously will be the right people. Tell me who you are, and I will send that to you.
Okay, I'm Ann Barrett, and I think maybe you have sent me something because I filled out some volunteer applications.
Okay. All right. Yes, I will definitely send you that information.
We'll work on that.
I actually have two questions.
Okay.
I'm assuming that this has the CIS orientation has happened right here.
Yes, done, check.
For others, will it be available online or will it be
Yes.
going to be done online?
And we have recorded this, Charlotte,
Oh,
so we can ask people to watch it.
Okay, we'll need to talk about it. Well, there are, so I have currently scheduled 4 of them, and they're all on Zoom. So, there's a link, and I can make sure that
everybody gets a link to the sign up. The first one, it happens on this coming Tuesday, and then I believe there's one on Friday, and then there's probably the following week. And so so you can get, if you have any other volunteers that you know are interested, they can definitely do the Zoom link.
The feedback we're getting from our school is there won't be anybody in the school not here until next year.
Yes, we have heard that there are several schools whose principals are not interested in volunteers for this year. So that's going to be something that I guess your congregation will have to talk about. If you would like to move to another school, you can talk with Pam and perhaps get that worked out. Or if you want to wait, or if you want to hope that they'll change their mind. I mean, I'm not really sure, but unfortunately the principal does make the final decision about their individual buildings. Even though they get recommendations from their higher up, they make that choice. So,
This is a related question. Since the literacy initiative is going to be in the after school, is it possible, I don't know if you know this, that we could do that in person at a school like Woodville after school, or does the principal go in the after school as well?
yeah, I mean, I think the principal would make that decision as well, because it's still her building. So I don't know that that can necessarily change a lot. Sorry.
Good question.
Yeah.
Is CIS handling the coordination of volunteers in the extended day program, or is that
Good question. So, probably not as much. What we can certainly do, what we're have talked with them about, is to go ahead and let volunteers come through the process, do the orientation, do the background check, get ready to volunteer. And then that would just be a handoff from us to whoever is running the after-school program. And each school is supposed to have an RPS person in charge of the after-school program. So that would be a handoff from us to that person to say, hey, these people want to volunteer, they're all ready to go, they've done all their requirements, and then connect you to them, and then we work that out with them. The reason that we're not in the after-school space is because our folks are contracted to work during school hours, and we don't have the funds to pay them to work longer. Like the school districts can pay their teachers to stay longer. We don't have that capacity, so our folks just work, pretty much during school. So that's the reason, unfortunately, that it's just not feasible for us to be there. But we go talk with them. I've had meetings with Seth Knight, RPS, and he has assured me that there would be a person that we could transfer the information to, and that they would be able to facilitate the actual, day-to-day times and days and all that kind of thing.
Maybe two more questions, and then we'll, how do you let them know that you want to do after school?
Well, that's another good question. So if you go fill out my, the volunteer profile, one of the questions it asks you is, what is your preferred time of day? So you can choose from, 9 to 3, which would be school time, or after school, 3 to 5 or whatever. And you can choose that. That way we'll know.
What about COVID vaccine verification?
So that's one thing I'm a little bit unclear about. Our profile asks you if you've been vaccinated, and if you have, there's a place to upload your card. So basically that would just require you to take a picture from your phone or whatever device of the front of your card, have it on your computer, and then once you're filling out your information, you can just link. It's very easy to link that, and then it's there. Whether or not we will be sharing that with Richmond Public Schools, I would assume they're going to want that. Yeah, I would assume they're going to want that. And so we haven't worked out exactly those details, but for us, we just figured we'd have it, and that way, we can either share it with them if they want to, or whatever their process, because I just don't think they have a process yet for that, but I know that they would like to have them. It brings up all kinds of challenges, because, what if a parent wants to volunteer in school? They have to show their card. Who are they showing that to? Because CIS doesn't really handle parent volunteering, and so so do they show that card to their secretary? I mean, it's just, there just needs to be a process, and they haven't come up with it yet, but I know they're working on it. So, anybody else?
Well, one last question about who is in charge of the new extended day? Is it RPS or is it Parks and Recs for us at Swansboro?
Right, I believe it's Richmond Public Schools, and then all the other organizations are contracted by them, because some of the middle schools have Next Up. I mean, there's lots of after-school programs that are occurring, and so I think they all fall within the umbrella of Richmond Public Schools, but they are contracted, being paid to do that by the school system.
And my understanding is they'll be there from 11 to 7 every day, and when do they get there? I mean, when will they start?
Who?
The RPS person in charge of the extended day.
I don't know.
Maybe.
There's on Wednesday night this week, they did a talk on the RPS Facebook page about extended day in the elementary schools.
Oh.
It's probably still on the
there.
RPS Facebook page. It's about 35 minutes and you can listen to it.
Yeah, that would be
The key acres are, like all the ones in the East End are Peter Hall. And then it's Parks and Rec or Y at other schools. But that was very, I listened to it, it was very helpful to hear that.
Okay, well, thank you all so much. We really, I so appreciate seeing you.
Thank you so much.
Contact me if you have any questions. I have some cards I'll leave up here if anybody who doesn't know how to get in touch with me.
Charlotte, if you could stay right there. We have a small token of our Micah appreciation. During COVID, CIS and RPS, I don't have to tell you guys, it was a lot. Trying to keep up with students, trying to keep them in front of their screens as much as possible, monitoring their needs, and for RPS meals and students, and it's been a lot. So we did a small little star, and it says to communities and schools for unwavering devotion to students and their families during the pandemic. So, if you can. Thank you so much. Okay, and thank you for your presentation. Okay, so what we will do now is to take is Dwayne here? Hi, Dwayne. Okay. So we're going to transition to our next workshop. We're going to take a 5-minute break in between. And for this section, our last section, you will have a choice. So I'll try to make this simple because we want to make sure we still have some space between us and the fellowship hall. So if you would like to stay for Mentor Virginia, and that is the workshop on mentoring in COVID recovery, you will stay here, and that will be with Dwayne. If you'd like to have an opportunity to network with other Micah volunteers and just exchange your stories and your experiences, then the Micah Advisory Council members will be facilitating 2 circles in the fellowship hall. The thing is, let's see, some people have left. So the fellowship hall, we can only have about 20 people. So there will be someone at the door counting. And when we get to 20, we're going to stop, and everyone else, you'll enjoy the presentation. That you can also choose to be here for that particular workshop. So as you take the 5-minute break, you'll be taking your break and also deciding, do you want to be here for Mentor Virginia, or would you like to be networking with Micah Advisory Council members? And may I ask the Advisory Council members to please stand, including the new people? And I just want to give you guys a round of appreciation. Some people have to leave. Hilda, you can stand. You're a new advisory member. And there are others. And we are still recruiting for the Micah Advisory Council, so if anyone has suggestions, please let me know. Okay,
so 5-minute break, and I'm gonna stand there until another volunteer comes at the fellowship hall to count to our 20. Thank you.
mentor VA training before? We've done about 4 virtual. Who's been in one of our trainings before?
Virtual.
Yeah, all training, virtual ones, yeah, okay. I remember some faces, okay. And who has not been in a mentor VA training before? Who has not been at all? Okay, all right. I'm kind of, also, is it okay that I remove my mask since you're in distance? Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. For you that have been in a mentor VA training before, probably the first 5 minutes is repetition you heard. And then for our new, if you will, our new members of the team, I am excited to be here this morning. Now, y'all been getting some good information so far, right? Yes. All right, and a lot of it has been procedural with some things, so I hope that what I'll do is I try to get some procedural things in, but I also try to get some substantive things in within the amount of time. Okay, now, you're going to appreciate this, what I'm going to say. How many of you all are adult learners? All right, that's kind of funny. Y'all supposed to laugh at that, right? What's the laugh? Okay, I'm going to tell some corny jokes. Laugh at them anyway, but not funny. And hopefully they won't be insensitive. We're going to make sure they won't be. But the reason I say that is this. I'm going to be doing this, and I know adult learners, you don't want to miss anything. You're not going to miss anything of substance. I'm not leaving anything out, but I'm going towards the things that you need based on what I've heard and based on where we are right now. So when you see me do this, pass up, don't freak out, all right? Don't freak out. You're not missing anything. It's just that the things I want to get to are more important, and that's going to help you in your role as a mentor. Is that okay? Is that okay if I do that? Also, what I want to do too is tell you this. Now tell you a little bit about me. I mean, let's go to the other. My name is Dwayne Bennett, and I'm with Mentor Virginia. And Mentor Virginia, we go around the state of Virginia and give best practice in mentoring. And we've been doing this since 1989. And this is what I found out about myself. I've been certified with Mentor VA, and we used to be Virginia Mentoring Partnership. Anybody remember that? We used to be Virginia Mentoring Partnership. And I've been certified with them. I filled out my certificate the other day since August of 2010. So I've been training at least 11 years, but before they gave me my certification, maybe I wasn't good enough yet, but before 20 years before they gave me my certification, I was doing trainings. All right, so I've been with them a long time, and I've been doing this work in the mentoring space even longer. All right, so we're going to be dealing with 2 aspects, and this is probably the most important aspect, and you may get bored with this in these times. It's really procedure. Dealing with COVID is really procedure. Everywhere you go, it's all about procedure. It's about getting this thing right. It's about social distancing. It's about rules and regulations. Half of the presentation is going to be on that because that's the big thing. Then secondly, we're going to work in some principles on, hey, how we can help our youth now. Does that make sense to anyone? The other thing I want to tell you is I want to throw in some personal experience because I just landed in our Bird, whatever they call it now, it's got different names. Bird Airport. What do they call it now? Richmond International, yes. I'm a native, so I'm still calling it Bird, right? I just, wheels was down at 10:05, coming from Chicago, went to Chicago last night, left here about 5, went to support my pastor and our spiritual father in an international faith conference. Hit that, got about 2.5 hours sleep, got back on the plane, and I'm coming here because this is so important. All right, and when I talk about procedure, I'm going to throw in some things about that, but I also want to talk about procedure is, I just got back 2 weeks ago from Ghana. Ghana, I visited 3 countries, Ghana's a country, 3 cities in Ghana. Accra, Kumasi, and Sunyani. Okay, that's where I just came from. How is that relevant to you? I went as a missionary with my church, and one of our goals is to kind of be a light and show the world is we don't have to shut down in this place of faith because of COVID. We can keep going. We can move. Because we had 37 missionaries, and we went 1 week in the airport, while one missionary team was leaving, the other team was coming, boom, high five, they left, the other one. 3 weeks, we had 3 different teams in Kenya and Ghana. right? Why is that important? We're people of faith. We got to know that the power that we have and the faith in God can overcome this COVID thing. Can't keep that and shut us down. We got to open this thing up, and that's why procedure is so important. Because in order for us to do that, I had to take a COVID test before I left Richmond, Virginia, within 3 days. Then when I got off the plane in Accra, Ghana, I didn't even know. They snatched me into a room and stuck a thing up my nose. So I had to do another COVID test when I got there. And then 10 days later, after we finished our mission, then I had to take another COVID test to come back to the United States. This is key. We had to go through all that procedure to do what? To go to save souls. Had to go through all the procedures. We had to get it right now. We had to pass the test so that we could do what? Go to save souls. How's it relevant to you? You're going to help the young people. You got it. It's within you. But you got to make sure you follow the procedure because they're not going to let you in the buildings. They're not going to let you in the program. They're not going to do the proper things if you don't follow the procedure. That's why it's so important that we walk through that. And I just want to give you a live, living testimony that we can do this. Because if we can take 37 missionaries across the world, halfway around the world, all of us had to have our visas, all of us had to have our shots, all of us had to go through COVID tests at least 3 times. Some of them had to go through 4 times because they went to another country between Kenya and Ghana. Come back, nobody's sick, nobody's hurt, saved over 100 and something souls, pray for a couple of 100 people, and come back. We can go across town and help these young people. Who's with me? All right, we got it. All right. So the reason I'm saying that is mentoring during COVID-19 recovery is more about procedure than anything else. I think you probably get that point. But I want to give you an example that we can do this. Now, the first thing I said to you was, and again, pay attention to what I do. Is it okay if I take off my mask? Procedure. All right. So when you're dealing with your young people, ask them or ask the administrators or always ask you, is it okay for me to be in this space? 1, is it okay for me to take off my mask? 2, is it okay, what's the procedure? Because procedure will get you out of the building. Procedure will get you in the wrong space with the young person. Not follow procedure will get you wrong person with the administrator. See how simple that is? Because if I didn't ask, somebody could be offended or be thrown off by the fact you don't have a mask on. So what you thinking the whole time is, you don't have a mask on. I'm giving good information. I'm giving awesome, wonderful stuff. But because what? I didn't follow proper procedure, your mind is focused on something else. Is this helpful? That's what's going to happen with the young person. That's what's going to happen with the administrator. That's going to happen wherever you are. If you don't follow procedure, they're going to be more focused on that than assisting you in helping the young person. Okay? That's why I asked. Now, you talk about Mentor VA. Maya Angelou, here she is. I love this quote. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Now, do this for a second. Just close your eyes for 10 seconds and think about the most impactful person that has come into your life. 3, 2, 1. Now open your eyes. Did you get a feeling when you thought about that person? Was that the first thing when you got that person, how they made me feel, what we went through at the time? That's what this mentoring space is. It's about empowering these young people so they can what? So they can go towards their goals, their dreams, and their aspirations based on, here you go, bring your own experiences, bring your own authenticity, bring your own personality into this space. So you're going to be able to do that and you're going to be able to make the impact. But the key is, how does the young person feel when I leave their presence versus I came in? Right? So if they feel worse after you leave, you just off track a little bit. But if they feel better, it's a win. And we're just looking for one win at a time. One win at a time. I like it, Kamasi. One test at a time. Going to better bed. One too many times, right? Working all the way through. How did I get here today? Get through one checkpoint at a time so I could get you. If I hadn't got through all the checkpoints, if I hadn't had all these pieces of paper I had to have to get through, right? Procedure is jacking me up to not to be here to help you out. All right? If I say procedure too many times, that's all right. I'll keep saying it. Here we go. All right? So, this is the thing. We want to make them feel a way to feel empowered when they leave their presence. Now, these are some workshop norms and tips. I want to take my time to go through here because If we get through these, you're probably not going to come across anything extensive of these in your work with our young people in this COVID era. If you work through these, if you think about these things, you're going to be able to get through them, okay? Thing is this, content rules. Sensitive content, perspective is reality, do not judge. And what does that mean? In this virtual space, what you may find is, and I don't know how the school's going to do it. I just heard the young lady say the principals have all the power. Is that the kind of thing that you all heard? The principal's going to determine from school to school how things go. So what that means? If you're going to 1 or 2 schools, you gotta have to pay attention to 1 or 2 different procedures. And then in terms of the way it goes, it still may be a hybrid model. You may meet young people sometimes in person, or you may meet them sometimes virtually. So you're going to have to juggle what we're doing at the time with our young people. So if you look at our young people in the screen virtually, you're going to be into their life. You're going to be in their house. You're going to be at their home. You're going to be at their school. So you may see some things that they're not aware of that could be sensitive in this situation, but we don't want you to judge that. We just want you to understand that, hey, everybody doesn't live the same life, everybody's not brought up the same, and people are going to be in different spaces and times. Now I'm a global corporate training speaker, and this virtual etiquette, it still needs to be learned. I was training, and there was a young lady, and I call her young, she's about 55, but she's young to me. All right, and she was in her exercise room when the training was going on. No problem. She's in the exercise room, cool, we got it. However, about 10 minutes in, her husband comes into the exercise room, and he starts exercising behind her. And I'm like, am I being joked? What's going on? People are not sensitive to things that are going on in the background, here we go, that affect you, right, or affect the person you're working with. So it goes both ways. It goes both ways. So we are asking that even with you as a mentor or some training with the mentee, that on both sides, we think about the space that we're going in and what we're doing at the time. And if things are not exactly the way we think they should be, don't make a judgment on it. Be sensitive about that, and then at the appropriate time, if we can address that, that's how we handle it. Does that make sense to you? Mm-hmm. All right, so we got to be sensitive to that. Now, the growth mindset. Who's been in training with me before? How many people been in training with me before? Y'all heard the growth mindset 15, 16 times. It's all about, can I tell you my jacket? It's a little warm here. It's all about being open and understanding that sometimes we fall into a fixed space, meaning we can only see life one way. And when we see life only one way, sometimes life can become boring, can become static, and then we don't feel excited or enthused. That's what we call the fixed mindset. But on the growth mindset side, we understand that life is an evolution. We understand that things are changing all the time. We understand that there is room for improvement for all of us. So when we talk about keeping a growth mindset as we move along in COVID, we're just going to have to be open. We're just going to have to be open as to how things are and understand we're going to have to evolve from the space that we are. All right, because we're going to see a lot of different things, and I can't explain everything. I can't give you a scenario for everything, but I tell you this, every situation will be different. Every situation is going to be different. So be open to how can I learn from this situation? How can I help my young person work through this situation? But how can I receive also through it? So the next session will be better. So we're growing each time, get better each time, get better each time. We're talking about what? The growth mindset. Then show some grace. Show grace. I don't have to spend a lot of time on showing grace, but even with our young people, they're young. They're young. Now, this is not a trick question, and I just want everybody to participate. Is anybody in this room ever been young? Okay, about 3 people. All right, we'll work on the other ones. We did some things when we were young. Now that we look back, we would have made a different choice. So as they go along, if our young people don't always respond or act in a way that we think is appropriate, give them some grace. Give them some grace. And then leaning into difficult conversations is hard for many people. But be kind. Just be kind, and you can work it through. And see, you all have these things because I'm giving you great enthusiasm. I'm giving you great push. I believe in the things that you can do because I can look and see that you have some experience in life. and the situations you want to come across with our young people, you've been through those before. So then you put on your experience with grace to help them to get where you are. You don't beat them over the head, right? You don't push them back. We just say, hey, you're young. I was young. Let's work through this thing because you have the answers that can help them get to their next level. Helpful tips. Spark. One will be indicated before sensitive content is reviewed. If you're showing your young people, you may have an example of something you give to them, or if you're sending them to a particular website, just don't send them there without reviewing it. Don't send them there without knowing what's in it. Because sometimes content may be less sensitive to you than it's more sensitive to them, and that could throw them off to the side. So what we do when you'll see in our presentations is, here we go, we always give a warning as to, hey, this may be sensitive content. All right? So the procedure in this space is, hey, I'm letting you know this may be sensitive content. If you feel objectionable or whatever, give me a nod or something, then we can move on to something else. So if you're a young person, right, what's the analogy? The same thing. Hey, we're getting ready to talk about some things that I thought we talked about before on last week. It may be a little difficult, maybe a little challenging, it may be a little bit out of your comfort zone. Let me know if I go too far. Does that help? Right? So we're going through this procedure, but it's the same thing you want to use with your young people in person or virtual. That's how we go. All right. Provide feedback. Learning works both ways. Using your voice helps us all grow. And feedback is needed in every situation, but this is the key to feedback. Take your time with it, and you don't always have to give all the feedback at one time. You can give feedback over sessions to help our young people move. So if it's a challenge, or if it's something they're supposed to accomplish, or something we're supposed to do, and then you're in your session with them, and you know it has been done, and there's been a challenge, you don't have to give them all 1 through 7. Give them 1 this time. Give them 2. And then as you feel, like we're talking about feel, as you feel they're ready to receive the other parts of it, then you work your way through. Because this is the key. This is a marathon with our young people. It's not a sprint. This is a marathon with our young people. It's not a sprint. You want to be with them over sessions. And I think it's usually at least a semester. So over a semester, you have some time to work with them. It may be over a year, you have some time to work with them. And the reason I'm saying this is because I've trained over myself personally, I've trained probably at least 4,200 mentors myself in these sessions. And one of the things that mentors have done in the past is, because you're so excited, because you can't wait to meet the young person, and the young person can't wait to meet you, they try to do everything in one session. Anybody ever done that? All right, keep looking ahead. All right, that's fine. All right, so the thing is, you got time. Most of us have had children. Most of us have had a pet or whatever. We can't give it to them all at one time. We got time to work it through, and with this feedback piece, we can take our time to work through that. Okay? Now, technology, COVID-19, coronavirus, pandemic use interchangeably. We already talked about the hybrid model that we probably want to be experiencing from now and probably in the foreseeable future. Because if we're dealing with principals and they have the authority to do certain things continuously, then you're going to be in different situations. All right, and let me stop and do a quick check-in. Is this making any sense to anyone so far? All right, is it helpful to at least one person understand? Okay, cool, we'll keep going. Now, see how this is? It's just little stuff, but what I'm doing is making conversions so you can use it. So see how I'm saying now, let's say, sales spark. So even with our young people, you can have a little sign. Some people make a little sign or something to say, hey, you get ready to talk about something sensitive, hold it up, let them know, then go into the procedure. And then if they're ready, they're ready. If they're not, you can go into the response. Also, one of the things I did that's been real effective and learned a long time ago, we did it most with elementary school students. Okay. Take a piece of paper, write a smiley face right here, write a face with the line straight across in the middle, and write another face right with a frown. 3 faces. And then when you meet with them, ask them to draw the face. That tells you exactly where they are. Now you're ready to work with them. They have a great happy day, that may be a day to work on some more feedback. If it's a challenge day because of a frown, you may like, okay, let's spend a little time talking, let's find out where you are, let's see what could I provide some grace, let's see what we can help you. If it's in the middle, then you might want to say, okay, which way you want to go today? Right? So the analogy is what? Our procedure is to do what? Give you sparks that you know. Your procedure can be what? Do the same thing and or find out where our young people are. Is this helpful? All right. Did anybody follow what I was doing? You just got a sheet of paper, and you can just draw it out if you want, or make copies. Just one of them on one side of it, frown, one side of it, smile, and on the middle of it is straight across. Like, they gonna tell you, how you doing there? Like, I don't know. You know, so it's okay, I gotta do it. Gotta do another question. Because we'll be in the middle all the time, right across, all right? So when you see some type of day, possible trauma trigger, I talk it through, I will let you know if it's sensitive. All right, I'll let you know if it's sensitive. These are the things you want to hear today. I'm hearing it all the time. People use these terms interchangeably. They mean different things, but people use them mean the same thing. Coronavirus, COVID-19, pandemic. People use them interchangeably. You're going to hear them interchangeably, but they mean different things. All right, you can dwell down on the definition at your leisure, but just to know, when people say these things, they're talking about the same thing, but it really is different situations. And then probably in a more specialized situation, then you're going to hear the terminology used in a specialized way. Does it make sense? So when you talk about these things, so when our young people, when they say, hey, COVID-19, they're talking about what? Pandemic. They're talking about pandemic, they're talking about COVID-19. When they're talking about COVID-19, they're talking about coronavirus. They're talking about what's going on in this space, and they may use the same terminology. Now, our objectives, again, just to discuss and break down the changes and modifications made with the education system. I'm not going to get into that because I think you all will talk about that a little bit and what's things are going on. But this is the key. There are changes in the education system. Period. It's never education, it's never going to be the way that it was. You got some insights from some of the experts from our local schools. You're hearing some things on the television, and education system is changing. That's good for us. Let's give us a reason to learn, to grow, to change, to see how things are different. And it's okay every once in a while. Let me tell you, every once in a while, y'all. I'm telling you, every once in a while. I'm giving you this every once in a while to say this. Well, when I was in school, all right, can't say that. What you say these much because they don't want to hear when I was in school. All they want to do is what's going on there. But you can find a way. I'll let y'all, because you got to get that out. Everybody will say that. So I'll give you that one to get that in with that. All right, identify questions, synthesize themes, and things. I'm moving past the objectives real fast because remember I told you, you're not going to miss anything. You're already getting some stuff, and I'm modifying as we go. Pandemic timeline. Here we go. This is what I want to hit on this. 2021 school year when learning went virtual. This is the key, y'all, but you already know it. When young people were in school all the time, face-to-face learning, right? If you look at learning, it was either flat or it was going up, all right? Face-to-face learning. But when they went virtual, what happened? Down. So we know face-to-face learning, one-on-one learning like we are, that's where we fill in these gaps. That's the number one methodology to learn, one-on-one. So understanding that, now we know that the young people that we're working with now, they're going to have a deficit, not necessarily because, here we go, not necessarily because they're not smart as they used to be. It's just that in-person learning versus virtual learning, you don't get as much bang for your buck. Does that make sense? Right. So recognize that. So when you're talking to these young people you haven't seen for 2 years, they haven't been in school for 2 years. So some things going on with them and some things going on with you. And I'm going to show you this picture shortly to show you the differences. It's going to be one group of young people, but it's the same group of young people, but how they look different being out of school for 2 years. All right, and I'll show you that. And then the time is now, and we'll talk about some things what they need. All right? We talk about the timeline. You're not missing anything. We'll always hit this real quickly when there. All right? This is what we just talked about here about summer slide to online school. We just hit that. Now look at this. Fifth grade girls and 7th grade girls. So last time you saw them, they were what? They were in the 5th grade. The next time you see them, right, they're in the 7th grade. Look at those girls. You see the changes? Is that remarkable? This is what you're going to see. This is the last time you saw them, this is what you saw. And when you see them again, this is what you're going to see. That's absolutely remarkable to me. And the reason I say that is, when I come too close, the reason I say that is because, so when you see them now, and they look so mature, and they look so much taller, that's because they are, right? They really are. But think about this though, because of the educational slide, that mature jump is not as big as their physical jump is. Their academic jump is not as big as the physical jump is. So that's the point. We already know, okay, I'm dealing with a young person that's a little older, right, but and physically they continue to grow, but academically and emotionally they haven't. So what that tells me? That tells me maybe I need to step back a little bit and not always look at them maybe as a 7th grader, maybe somewhere in between, and then maybe part of my job as a mentor is to help bring them up faster. So their physical body, their academic body, and their emotional body can match. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Why am I throwing that out? Because the mentors always ask, well, what am I supposed to do? How can I help them? Just gave you one way. Kind of ease them in to making this transition back from what? From virtual learning to in-person learning, because they're going through a lot of things. They're going to have a lot of questions. I'm telling you, they're going to have a lot of questions about the pandemic, about COVID-19, all of these things. So you're going to spend some time on it, but don't be shy, right? You'll be ready for it, and you'll already be ready for this market distance. Then, is this just this slide? Is that helpful? When I saw that, I was like, wow. Because usually when we're with them, gradually you can't tell the change. But this is what we are working through from preteen to teenage. Now, this is, I'm gonna give them to send this to you, Pam.
Okay.
And you can send this out. This young lady had COVID-19 for a year, and she talks about her experiences. It's a wealth of knowledge in it. But because of the time factor is about 10 or 12 minutes, we're skipping this, but we're gonna make sure Pam has it, and whoever wants it, they can get it. All right, it's a wealth of some things in there. Now, here we go. At the end of the day, the people that matter most. During the pandemic, think about this. My family was impacted by COVID how? Think about that. My family was impacted by COVID how? Think about that for a second. Now, if anyone feels comfortable enough, would anyone like to share how their family was impacted by COVID? And we're not talking about, it doesn't necessarily happen, we're not talking about somebody got COVID and got sick, if they didn't want to share it. But what type of impact that COVID had on you as in your family?
My daughter had her first and probably only grandchild, my grandchild, and we were lucky enough to be able to quarantine, but we can't see her very often because we live thousands of miles apart.
Okay, and what she said was her daughter, right, had their first grandchild in COVID. You know, grandparents, we want to see the baby, right? But she wasn't able to spend as much time with her grandchild because of quarantine, those things. All right, that's a family dynamic that we deal with, all of us deal with. My son, he's in the Navy, he's in San Diego. I couldn't get there with him. They had certain Navy protocols, but they didn't want, our servicemen to come home. And if you were in a high, what they call, what's the term usually? Like a red zone, they wouldn't allow you to come home because the incident of COVID was so high. So it was close for him because in Virginia Beach, remember Virginia Beach, it was, spread with events and the numbers were high all the time. And he had to kind of talk his way through because they didn't want to send him here because it was so close to Virginia Beach. So the impact on her family, on my family, it's going to be the same thing on the young people that you work with. They haven't had time that they wanted to spend with their families in those situations. So again, how can I help my young person? Help them work their way through because we have experiences with those things. And then this is the wonderful thing. There's so many wonderful things about mentoring. That's why I've been with it in so long is the things that you teach our young people, they take home with them. And they start having those experiences. So you're not only mentoring the young person, you really have an effect on their family because they take their stuff home. So when you're helping them work with their family through this, then they're also helping their family work with things. Does that make sense? So these are some things that now we get into, how can I help my young person in this space? Okay, my friends were impacted by COVID. Anybody have a story about their friends being impacted by COVID? Want to share? Let me tell you, my wife, she meets with 5 of her high school girlfriends every year. And they have it set up around the same time, but this year, one of the girlfriends had COVID before the event. And they had to cancel their yearly event out of with our young people. Do you think some events that's important in their lives have been canceled? Do you think they're going through that trauma or that challenge, that disappointment? Do you think we can help them with those things? Yes, we can. These are the issues that we're going to be working with now in this space. So see how we had to get through the procedure to get to them. Now that we're with them, either virtually or in person, now these are the issues that they're dealing with. Now, you're going to get this after I go through another couple of questions, but you already know the answer. I'm going to ask you a question after we go through a few more, but you already know the answer right now. All right, now, how many people know someone that lost time for work? Anybody know people that lost time for work? You just raise your hand. Okay. Had or was related to children who participated in virtual school. Anybody had children related to virtual school? Okay. Now, I love this one because I already hit it. I think I got a poem on here too. I have a poem on here. Oh, here we go. This one right here. This kind of cool. Thank you, RVAV. All right. Babies born or new addition to family. We just talked about that. Right? We just talked about that. And was not motivated to leave the house or socialize virtually. All right. The people who matter the most. Now, here's the question. These are the things that we're talking about that have an effect on us. Who else do you think these things have an effect on that you want to be working with? The mentees. The mentees. Why is that important? You're ready. You're equipped. You work with some things. Work with some people. You work through some things. You've had these conversations. So this is what's going to happen as we go back out in virtual learning, as we go into the face-to-face. It's going to be the same conversation. It's going to be the same things you equip with. And see, since we already had, I'm on fire. I must be doing a good job, right? All right. We go away from it. When we go back into the virtual environment and in person, you're already equipped. Here we go, because we've been trained, if you think about it, 3 or 4 trainings, and I think some of the modules for you that's online on the best practice I mentioned. You see what I'm saying? So you got that in your toolkit. Now what we're just doing is bringing those forward into the pandemic, if you will, COVID-19 space, and now it's focused on what's going to be those issues. That's where we are with that. Does that make sense? And for those of you that haven't been in the training, this is what I encourage you to do. Talk to some of the other mentors, right? And also some of the models, some of the things that Pam has, she'll make those available to you. Okay? So some people that haven't been trained before, haven't been training, then this will bring you up to speed and give you some more tools. Okay? Now I'm going to take a break and see if there's anything that I'm doing that's causing them to pop. Is anything? Do you want to keep going?
It's upstairs.
It's upstairs? You good? Okay, cool. All right. Any questions on it? People that matter the most. Now, how we doing so far? We've got a couple minutes. You doing all right? Okay. Now, access isn't always accessible. Let me just say this in a couple sentences, and let's just go ahead and kind of, I hate to use this term, but we'll address the elephant in the room a little bit. Most of I see in Micah doesn't always look like our mentees. We agree with that. So some of the things that we have access to, some of the places, some of the opportunities they have not had access to. That was even before COVID. So now you put COVID on it. You know how you do 1 + 1 is 2? So when you put COVID on, the lack of access, the lack of opportunity, now it's what? It's exponential. When we put that little number on top of it. So there's been some challenges that COVID has exacerbated, and one of them is food deserts, right? A lot of our I felt this out firsthand. A lot of the mentees is when the school shut down, they didn't have no food. We don't know anything about that. I don't know anything about that myself, but they didn't have any food. So that's the issue. But they're coming back, and I didn't even know this, is that even in Washington, D.C., a lot of times when they have blizzards in the school system, things shut down the school system, they open up the schools anyway because the children are not going to have anything to eat. So no matter what happens, they always open the schools. So they have some breakfast, some lunch, those things. So our young people, they're dealing with these issues that we may not have addressed before, but it affects what? Here we go. It affects their learning, it affects their development, and it affects their emotion. So what don't we do? We don't judge that. We understand it and be sensitive to it. And if there's resources that we can refer them to, then we can refer them to those resources. Does that make sense? Again, what things are going to come up? How can I be helpful in my space? Right? These are things that's going to come up. And then healthcare, all of those things you hear in the news, let me tell you, it's true. It's for real. COVID has exacerbated a lot of these things for, if you will, our brothers, here we go, and because they are brothers, our brothers and our sisters on different levels than us. And we got to be sensitive to that, because a lot of times that comes in effect with, I can't do well on this test. I'm getting F's in math. Why? Because I'm hungry. What's your name? Marsha. But Marsha knows I've been working with you on math for 3 consecutive months, and I know you know the answer, and then you come back with an F on math. And Martha doesn't, she's getting ahead because like, I know you know this. Maybe I have to talk to them a little bit, like, ask them about their study space. Ask them about why they may not have was able to go further in their study. Ask them what happened to them on their test days, because that could be the day they didn't get anything. That could be the day that they were sick and they just didn't have the health care. They couldn't really, just like me and you. I'm talking about better me, just like everybody got that. Everybody don't have that. So these things, access isn't always accessible. So we just got to be sensitive that sometimes there's other causes that are challenges to our young people than the thing that we would normally see. Does it make sense to anyone? Now, I'm saying some of these things really I had to learn myself, and especially the depth of these things, and it's even worse than even some of the statistics say. So what's the point? I'm making you aware of COVID has exponentially expanded, if you will, or exacerbated some of the challenges of, if you will, our target, our young people, the people we work with. Just have the awareness of that. That's going to make you be able to say, hey, when I work with these young people, if they're not growing, they're not working through some things, let me talk about some other things besides, here I'm going to make myself, but y'all might like this one. Reading, writing, and arithmetic, right? Remember that? It's different sometimes when we go there. So we just want to make you aware of that in that situation. Maybe I pop. I'm going to move right. Go ahead.
So what do we do, like, if, we find out that the candidate with information was and then they tell us, understand the field, what do we do?
Don't freak out in front of them. That's the first thing, because I see don't freak out in front of them, don't worry about it, and take it to the store. Don't do that. All right. And that's a margin, right? It's a margin? March? Which one is it? March, okay. The reason I'm saying that is when I went to Africa, my born name is Kwaku. And they kept asking me to practice and say it correctly. So I'm very sensitive about names, so I'm Mark. So this is the deal. You all, and that's why I love this question, because it's making take us out. It's not just you and the mentee. It's you in this old Micah program. It's you in this church that we're in. It's you in the school and the community service. It's you in the elementary. You're not in this alone. So if there's a challenge that comes that's a little bit bigger than you are, that's fine. Because I've been around the world, this thing's bigger than all of us. So if it's bigger than you, don't feel bad, I can't handle it. Just cry inside, work them through it, and then get you some help. Go talk to your program coordinator. Maybe talk to a counselor at school. Maybe talk to someone at a church that dealt with these situations sometimes. It's always a way out. It's always some help. It's always some ways to get there. I'm just going to it. Okay, we're here. All right, so I'm just going through some ways just to help. But this is the key. If you don't get anything else, what's the 2 things that I hopefully I made apparent that stick to your mind? What's the first thing you got to get through? Procedure. Exactly. I had to get through a lot to get here. I can still be TAB, still pat me down. And I had some cufflinks, right? And it's like, you got metal in your arm and you got this. I'm like, no. And he's like, go back, go again. Beep is red, like, no. Then you couldn't see that on the back side of my shirt, it was cufflinks. But I had to get through that and get here. It's the same thing with yours. And the reason why I'm saying is it's going to take some patience, y'all. It's going to take some patience to deal with these procedures every time you turn around. You're going to go to school 1 weekend and it's going to be one way, and the next week it's going to be another way. I'm telling you what I know. All right, because that's how the school system works. So So take some patience, take some time, and work on one, proceed with that. And then with the young people in the virtual space, the procedures with that. Take your time with it. Ask them, is it okay that, and you talk about certain things. And sometimes this is a big deal. And I'm a coach too. People don't want to turn on the video. People don't want to show their faces. And probably some people all that data. But that's the number one thing that HR people are telling me today is keeping people from moving forward. They don't show their faces in meetings. So this sensitivity to not showing your face or not being available for people, it comes up and it's all the way down to our young people. But with our young people sometimes, it could be something else that's going on with them. So don't always, if they don't want to show their face on a certain day, you know, we got to push it. If they're still talking, if they're still engaged, work with them through that thing. And then maybe encourage them the next time, give them some pointers as to why it's important to do that. Got to get through this procedure, got to get through certain things. If you see anything in the background that makes you feel uncomfortable, it's not supposed to be there, go talk to someone. Talk to the counselor, talk to your coordinator. Find out if this is something that needs to go forward, or this is something I need to deal with, or this is something I need to let go. Because it's different situations. Does that make sense? So we got to do all the procedure, and now, here we go. The issues are the same we have. All the issues are the same. All the issues are the same. I miss my family. I miss my schoolmates. I don't know what to do now that I'm in the 7th grade. They're giving me 7th grade work and 7th grade issues, but I've still got a 5th grade mind, a 5th grade emotion, a 5th grade internet. So you're going to work through those things. Some things is, when COVID first started, it's 12 o'clock, I got to end with this. When COVID first started, me and my wife, some days, because we both work from home, we was like, it's just a fall. We don't even know what day it is, right? We don't know what day it is. And I'm going to take this statistic, and it got something to do with my house, but I'm not going to say that record because I'm not. But when COVID hit, the water bills went down. See what I'm saying? The water bills went down, right? So what I'm saying, see these issues, we all deal with these issues, and we all deal with it in the same way, and that's what we do with our young people, but that's all because you have loving hearts, because you have the experience in life, because you really want to help, you're going to be fine. My thing is to get you through, to get you to them. That's why we spend 70% of the thing in working on procedure, and 130% of the thing in talking about these issues of life, which are going to be the same for you no matter where you go. We good?
Yeah.
All right, it's 12 o'clock, all right. Now, I'm supposed to be done, and you all got something else to do. We got to get out here. I don't know, Ms. Spencer here. Does anybody have any questions we can hit real quick? All right, everybody's good? We're probably going to be doing some more trainings again anyway, but take these things that we did today. You're going to be fine. You're going to do an awesome job, and also talk to your peers that want to build, because they're going to be asking you questions as you do the training, right? They over there drinking water and eating crackers. There you go. Oh, we're here. All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.